Yeah, no, when I wrote my learning objectives for this course that we're developing, I had many learning objectives and they were quite specific. And I wanted to have Bea's and Patricia's perspective on that. I mean, how specific should they be when we talk about learning objectives at course level? So that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah, see, so then is when we kind of started going into this idea as in, so you've got your big question, and so you that's in a way what you start big, so that's your umbrella question, and if you're able to break that question, for example, into 4 or 5 smaller questions, then you kind of have a second layer of, you've kind of divided that into, like, you've got a big topic into subtopics, and then you can divide it even further into smaller questions, right? So that's what we were saying, that how much information do you need to give somebody who wants to take the course in order to decide, is this course for me or not, right? So that's how we play in a way. So it's not necessarily marketing. It's just explaining to somebody what is going to happen here. What are you going to learn? So the way that we do it with edX is this idea that you have your 4 or 5. I don't know if we make it 6 sometimes. But anyway, 4 or 5 learning objectives at the top level, and then we have the opportunity to explain when we go into the syllabus in a way, as in what's going to happen module by module. So that's you give more like into narrative as in what's going to happen in this thing. But what I was going to go back to this idea of say what you're going to say it, and then say what you said. It's like the same thing as in this is what's going to happen. So then something happens, and then you do a recap at the end. This is what happened. So these are kind of the takeaways. And if you think about it, you could take that little formula and pretty much apply it to every single thing that you do. So even if you take it at kind of a module level, but even at kind of a learning activity level, because it is part of that narrative, part of the story, since we're moving into storyboarding, that you say to people always, why am I asking you to do this? Why do you have to watch this video? Why do I want you to do this particular exercise? And that is when you're specific of seeing Martin, because you have a very clear idea of what you want them to do and why. It's just when it's deciding when do they need to have that kind of information, and it's not necessarily at the top level when I haven't started the course yet. So it's good that you know it. It's just not always necessarily communicated from the very beginning to them. This is what's going to happen in this course.
So the advice goes that say what you. Can you repeat that slowly?
Yeah. So the advice was given to me when I was writing my dissertation, right? So it was all about, so you say what you're going to say. So you say what you're going to write. So you then write it, and then at the end you say what you wrote. See what I mean? So it's like I want to tell you a story. So this is what I'm going. This, for example, I don't know. If it was the chapter on research methods, right? So in this particular chapter, I'm going to tell you about the methodology that I use in order to do my research, right? So then I will explain and then at the end, I will say in this chapter, I told you about the methodology that I used, which was X, for example. See, and in a way, it's like it kind of goes in a loop. So it's like you are constantly kind of moving forward, but helping somebody to come along with you in that sense. It's a bit like
it's something that you will also use when introduced. So you have, let's say, the about page, the introduction module, and then per module you will do this. So you will at the beginning say, hey, in this module we're going to do this, and then you can go a bit more specific when explaining. You have the learning objectives, and then you explain how they are going to attain those, and then at the end you say again what they did, like as you said. So you explain yourself again to close, let's say,
Yeah,
the loop.
even think about it as at the kind of learning activity level. So imagine that so my whole learning activity centers around watching a video, which is very typical for us, right? So you still need to kind of introduce this video. So you need to still say to people, we're gonna watch a video about storyboarding, and I want you to watch this video because I'm going to give you an example of blah, 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 blah. So that is the action. So then you go and you watch the video, and ideally then it's your punch, your reinforcement, right? So that could be in the shape of a text that says, so you are highlighting exactly what do you want. So that takeaway message that you want from the video, for example, but you could translate that instead of you giving it to them. You could then have a little quiz, for example, where the correct answer is exactly the takeaway that you want your learners to get out of the video. So the loop is exactly the same in a way. So you can extend it a little bit more, shorten it, but it's always that. So say what you're going to say it, and then say what you said.
Yeah.
In a way.
And it makes a lot of sense when you add building. So today I was redesigning a training that we have. So, and I discovered one of the modules didn't have the introduction and the end, let's say. So then I had to say what they were going to do and they were going to learn and the skills they were going to develop. And then at the end to say it again. And every time I'm writing the end part, I'm like, oh my God, I'm saying the same. But then when I review the module, it makes sense. Because it's closing the loop, and it's like in this module you did this, and explore the other, and practice this, and then when I read it as a learner, so you are gonna test it soon. Yes, it makes sense.
It connects also. No, go. Yeah, Roberta.
I have a question, but now in the storyboard that we were preparing for today, you are looking for that level of details or not? Because for me, what I was trying to find is I took one learning objective that I had in the blueprint, and then I broke that down smaller from my head. I wrote them down, and then I was trying to design or write down the learning activities, but I didn't, introduce the module and say I didn't write all. Okay.
No. What the whole thing, because we have to be realistic as well. So in a way, so the whole thing about this particular module is for you to get, and it sounds very simple, but in practice, then is one of the things that works out more difficult, and it's the idea of constructive alignment, right? So yes, you do have your learning objective.
Mm-hmm.
So you say to me, okay, so if you take this module, if you take this course, let's go over module. So if you take this module, you're going to learn how to identify the ingredients of the paella in the supermarket, right? So then immediately, and this is where it gets difficult. So you never really start at the beginning and then decide what happens, right? So I'm going to decide, I know what this module is about. So I want you to learn about the ingredients of paella, right? But so most people will start kind of, so I'm going to record a video about this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to show you an article about this and that. And they always kind of forget about the end. And it really is, so if I says to you, I promise that you're going to be able to do this, then immediately think as in, what are you going to ask me to do? That proves to me as learner, but to you as a teacher, that I can really do what you promised me at the beginning I was going to be able to do. So once I know what I'm going to ask you to do, so then you can design what do I need in order to be able to do this. Not necessarily start with a learning objective at the beginning and then continue with the story. So this is why at this level, it's like we want you to practice that in a sense, and then bring in all these Lego blocks, which kind of is to kind of give you an idea of the variety of stuff that you can use in order to, have all those, think of all those Lego blocks as in what all the pieces that happen in the middle between learning objective and assessment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no, I mean, of course, you don't.
There are different ways of tackling it. So what we experience with the lecturers is they have the content, no? So we have to really force them into like writing the learning objectives and or good learning objectives, because that's the other thing. And that they don't overpromise what they are gonna do in the module or in the course even. But then they are, oh yes, I have all this content, all this material, all these papers I want to put, and then that's a bit like the course. And we are more keen, and I really like when instructors like it, sometimes it happens, that this idea of backward design. So I have my learning objectives, I know what I want them to do, so how do I build the blocks in the middle to help them to, let's say, like I'm like building a ladder, so to reach that, right? So that it's a really nice process to think, or when redesigning the same, no? When you are redesigning, you can tell the story again. I like redesigning quite a lot, so it's like I would like to update the content and the activities that I have, so I know what I want them to do at the end, so how I help them to really obtain that.
Yeah.
Was the question, so the assignment, was that due today?
We found that
I thought it said the 10th of June.
Yes, sorry, and public apology. So it seems that when I set on the calendar, I missed 1 week, so I missed this week, so I put the deadline on the 10th. Yeah, the idea is that we have every week like one deadline. Again, it's flexible, the deadline, so if you couldn't make it for today, that's fine. No, but the idea is per week, so from now we discover I missed it.
So
I'll hand it in tomorrow then. I'll hand it in tomorrow.
There was a mismatch.
Yeah, on the page. So at the beginning, the syllabus was okay, but then when I build it per module, I miss a week. Yes, so this week it's not there.
Okay, I thought it was because of the holidays. I imagine you have the holidays.
Yes, we had the Monday. We had the Thursday and the Friday.
We had Thursday and Friday.
But no, it was not because of that.
I didn't see the date for me.
Human mistake.
I thought it was Tuesday now, and then I didn't see.
Yeah, no, a human mistake. Like in the syllabus it's okay, but then in the page itself was not. But yeah, no worries. Yeah.
No, we're super flexible in that sense, so don't worry about it. So yeah, but the whole idea is like to get you to think in those terms. So you have decent learning objectives, but then immediately, so if you ask me to, so if you're gonna be able to do this, then what? So yeah, what are you gonna ask me to do? So then I know, and then you know.
Yeah, and what I now again reading your learning objectives, Morten, like what are you gonna ask me that is the most complex one, let's say? Because for example, I go to your specific learning objectives now in the design phase, so you have a bunch of micro, let's say, learning objectives that they might lead to a bigger like outcome at the end. So I will focus on that. So how do I design for this? And then you go into the micro things and say, oh yes, this is more an activity, right? Like will lead to this outcome. Yeah, and it's really nice. I think it's challenging. So this module and next module, so both are the most challenging ones, I think, but also the most, fun. Because you think and rethink, and when you think as a learner, so you just, as a designer, you build something and then you just leave it for like a couple of hours, then go back as a learner and then say, oh my God, I don't understand what I wrote. Or yes, it makes total sense like to do, because again, like as a learner, and the instructional design part comes in, like you have to be very clear in the instructions, but also to have a coherent way of showing the path. Now the workflow has to have like, not only to make sense, but to lead them to the next learning objectives. Now, if we go to the Bloom's taxonomy, so more complex and more complex and more complex in a way that they don't really realize. So even like how we build these two modules, which again are quite challenging, we try to build that in that way. So you find it's the difficulty of these modules, it's a bit higher maybe. So I don't want to spoil it, but we'll try to design it in a way that you can reach the outcome that we would like you to reach at the end.
But then, and think about it, just because we're in module 3 and module 4, whatever it is that we are, don't forget about 3. So tomorrow we open 4, right? Yeah. So don't forget about what we talked in module 1, what we talked in module 2, right? Because now I'm saying, do constructive alignment and this is learning objectives. But see, in designing or thinking about that, both thinking about the assessment, thinking about all those learning activities, the different Lego blocks and all that, don't forget really when you were thinking, so one is what Patricia was saying, think of the learner, so go back to your persona and think from the perspective of the persona that you created, will this person be able to do this? Or what am I missing? What else do they need? But also don't forget all the time we still have the online learning principles. So if you decided at the beginning, well, I want to get, I want to create an engaging course, or I want to make a supportive course, then don't forget these things still have a weight as you're trying to figure out what it is that you're asking them to do in the assessment or what happens in the middle. So, I know it's an example that we go back to all the time. Everybody wants to have an engaging course, but then when you sit down, it's like, they give you they have a list of videos, and even the video is just a person going blah 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 in front of a green screen that's then gonna have slides. So okay, if that's your idea of an engaging course, that's fine. I'm gonna go with it. But see what I mean? So it's just kind of connecting everything that you have gone through, that you have learned so far in module 1 and module 2 to kind of try. Okay, are we looking for perfection? Of course not, but this is what we want you, the way we kind of want you to go towards being super designers.
I have to say that the things that I found most difficult was today thinking about the persona, because at some point I was thinking, okay, but I really actually I can't think about the persona while I'm design the activities, because somehow, and I think maybe it's a problem shared by other people, I think, okay, I need to teach everything, because that person anyway doesn't know that it's not the right approach, because my persona were people that were involved in this, but I find it very hard to let it go, to really design for the persona. I don't know how to explain, because to hit the right level, let's say, how much details I need to, because I don't know them and I don't know their previous knowledge. So I find it very hard to let it go. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. But do you know what, in a way, so when I read your personas, I thought, I think I left the comment as like, you really design these personas with intensity, as in the only thing I do in my life is make this course, quality assurance. I can't do anything else, right? So for me, it was like, oh God. So in a way, but this is what I'm saying, that of course, so you're doing this kind of exercise. For starters, you're doing it on your own, which is normally, we always say, if you're going to design something, you always kind of bounce into the ideas with somebody else. So then that it would bring, in this case, that lightness, right? But the idea is that not, because you went into so much intensity for each of the two. The two personas, then you kind of feel a need, oh my God, but it's exactly what you said. You don't need to cover absolutely everything, as in, you don't know, for starters, it's an imaginary person, right? So they're never going to come and complain to you. But it's about not necessarily just ticking all the boxes, exactly, because you don't know what is we don't ask you to kind of design exactly what it is that they studied, how much they know, they don't know, but you need to kind of get into the mood, as in does this person in this particular exercise that I want her to do, will she be able to do it? Will she be interested in this? Does she need a reason to do this? And is she going to be able to do it? And that's in a way what we want you to get at.
Yeah, because you don't see your learners in online learning, and you don't. Yeah, I don't know. I find it very challenging. I have to say, maybe for what you described, that I gave too much descriptions, and then I didn't know what to do with that. Basically.
Yeah, another thing that you will start facing in this module and next module is a bit like the struggle that you mentioned, Roberta, and to distinguish what's a must to have and what's a nice to have in the course. So again, when designing, you are designing, again, with your personas, you have a target audience that is defined. It could be that they are completely novice, so they have no clue of it. It's an assumption, right? But it's a basic course, let's say, but it can also be more an intermediate or someone that is in the field, so professionals that already work in the field. And then you have to distinguish on what they have to really tackle the learning objectives and what's nice. And the nice can be because it's extra and it's something else, but it's like referring to other skills or to more complex topics. But it could also be something that you take that not for granted, but you think they might know. Because of, again, it's the target is professionals that are already working in the field, because it's an intermediate course, because it's something not completely related to the topic, but it's something needed. And then you add it as well as something extra. No, and we have that in our courses. So, for example, all the Safe Quantum courses, so they build like the complexity. So there are now 8 courses that they developed. And then, of course, the first one are more like basic ones. And then in the rest of the courses, so they have the material that is for that course. And then they say, hey, if you need like more clarification on these quantum terms, please refer to this other material that is in the other course, right? So they use their own courses to refer to other things that, of course, if you want to cover it all in one course, is so overwhelming. First, that could be that the learner already knows, so they just, or they skip it, or they say, oh, I have to do this again. But the other thing is like, it's quite overwhelming to have all those learning objectives again in a course that it's a bit more advanced. So that's a challenge. And again, it comes and you can like draft it and then you say, oh no, this is not really needed. This is something nice to have. So I just leave it for a section that can be, yes, extra material or for continuing like in the topic, etc.
I like the idea of, I've always liked kind of telling stories, right? So when we are designing a course, what you're doing really is just telling a story. And it kind of, so it's interesting to hear your comment, Roberta, when you said, well, I don't know, it's online, I don't see them, right? So precisely because it's online, and yes, it is true that you don't see them, it's like, you need to help telling that story, right? So, and then again, it's about finding, and as like anything else, when you're riding a bicycle, the more you do it, the better you're at it. When you're telling a story, you know, sometimes the more stories you tell, the better you get at it, right? But even if you think of a story, so you will think of Little Red Riding Hood, for example, right? So we all know the story about Little Red Riding Hood, the fact that the grandmother is sick and the mother gives the basket to Little Red Riding Hood and says, look, will you bring the basket with the food to your granny? And she goes through the forest and bumps into the wolf and blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of the story goes. So you don't really need to know exactly what was the background of Little Red Riding Hood's mother, or why the grandmother was sick, or why did she take this path and not the other path. You just pick your own story and bring your learners along with that story. So the only thing you need to kind of make sure of in this journey is that they're still with you. So it's like you hold somebody. So that's why I've always said that online learning is much more, it requires a bit much more hand-holding from not the teacher, because as you said, you're not there all the time, but the voice, your teaching voice needs to be there. And that's how you kind of need to make sure that the learner comes with you. And that's partly also deciding, I'm asking you to do this particular activity. Can you do it with what it is that I'm giving you? If you can't, what else can I? What else? In a way, always kind of all the time anticipating what it is that they're going to need, or what it is that potentially they're going to ask, and give them that already before you get on. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It just maybe I'm not so inspired with the quality assurance to make this story.
It could be maybe quality assurance is so dry.
No, but it's not. I mean, anything can be dry or not dry, so that doesn't.
No, but it is true. It's actually, is that true or not? Do you think that there are certain topics that are more difficult to
tell a story? No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's probably it's just the approach that you need to have. I think you can make any story a good one.
Yeah.
Just you need to find the right approach, I would say.
Yeah, but it is, don't get obsessed in terms of you don't have to get it right at the first time. And it is true. It's always so much better when it's nice that we're having these conversations, but it's because it is very important. Because you're telling a story, you're gonna need to test that story with somebody. And that doesn't need to be necessarily your learner from the very beginning, but anyone that you're working with, or even even your husband or your children.
Oh yeah, the children know, but my husband, I tested. My first courses, he was my beta tester.
Yeah, see, so
yes, that's very true.
I know. Do you have any other questions? I think Patricia and I could just talk forever.
Oh yeah.
Any questions? So one of the things that what's your impression of the Lego blocks? Think about the Lego blocks. So I haven't done it properly in quite a while, but the fun of the Lego blocks and the colors, right? It's another way. When we used to storyboard in a group, so you've got around the table, you start kind of and I go back to the same point. We haven't discovered these things. This is anyone who's into kind of online designing education. They may not call it Lego blocks, they call it something else, and they use cards, or they use this or that. But we're not that far into deciding, we are unique in terms of doing this. So, but what I like a lot about the Lego blocks is especially when you are designing with other people around the table, and then they immediately think, okay, so I'm going to ask them to do this. So this is my learning objective. You get the assessment. I'm going to ask them to do this, and then I'll ask it to do this, and I'm going to ask them to do this, and that, and the other. So then you can go back to it and say, okay, so which of these? So if we've got the Lego cards, so we used to actually have cards. Mm-hmm. I think I have them somewhere actually in my locker. Yeah. Anyway, so we used to kind of print these cards in the different colors. So you would put one of these cards beside the activity that is represented. So this is, they're going to watch this video. Okay, so this is more kind of a stimulation. So I'm going to give them this. So this is about doing this, or this is about reading this. Oh, this is another red. Oh, this is, so then that you kind of get that variety of colors. Right?
Yeah, or not.
Kind of similar or not what it says in the video. So we go back exactly to the same point. Oh, hey, you said you want to do an engaging course, but all we see here is a sea of red, which is all about a simulation. So maybe you should bring in some kind of blue for collaboration, or some other kind of exercise that way. So you kind of work visually.
Yes, you work visually, and also you go back to your learning objectives, because if you have a lot of assimilating and you are asking your learning objective or promises to develop designing skills, there is a mismatch.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing with the colors and the playing around. Yeah.
So if you promise me that I'm going to be doing something, designing something, and then in the end I'm just watching
a video,
or then I'm not really doing anything, right? Yeah. So then it's kind of a mismatch. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It gives a bit of headache sometimes.
Total headache, yes.
Or working with the content expert, sometimes it's like, no, but they are watching a video, Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Questions? Problems? Mm-hmm. Highlights?
No, I just think that.
Sorry. Go, Martin. No, please go.
I've realized that my two learner personas, they are too different. So, for me, it's not a problem to have two learner personas if the one if learner persona B is a subset of persona A.
Mm.
But I
Concept.
realized that my learner persona B is too different from learner persona A. So I'm design a course for one of the learner personas and not the other one. I'm gonna find another offer for that person.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Yeah. You could even have the opposite situation. I was having a conversation with a real course team last week, and when we were trying to work on the personas, their course apparently is for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone.
That's easy, everyone.
Everyone. So
Everyone that is interested in the topic. That's why they say, no, and this is
everyone, but everyone what? Like me? Everyone who is interested in sustainability. Okay,
Yeah.
I have an interest in sustainability. Is this course for me? Well, not really. I said, well, I'm sustainability. I'm interested in climate change. I try not to fly very often. Is that me? Well, no, but yes, it could be you, but it's just everybody. Not very helpful.
Yeah, it's not always. It's not always.
Yeah.
I think for everybody, no.
Yeah. Roberta, you had a comment.
Hi. No, for me, I was still thinking about the learning objectives that I wrote in the blueprint. And then if it makes sense then to take, I don't know, one by one those and break them down, because that's what I did today. I took one, I broke it down in other learning objectives in my head. I don't know if it was the correct way of doing it. And then maybe that was my way of working. I was trying for each of the smaller one to make a learning activity.
Yeah.
But then according to what Patricia was saying, okay, I shouldn't show to any learner this, I understand. But does it make sense to work in this way or not? I mean, for each smaller learning objective, I try to design an activity. And going really in that way. But I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to do that. I don't know. Maybe I should try to do another module differently.
Well, the question to you is, have you thought about constructive alignment? So have you done, so just go back to the end, as in what you're asking me to do.
I mean, I was trying to, for each objectives to aligning with the activity. In theory, I mean, I was trying to make the alignment. Yeah. Then if maybe I should relook at it. I did it this morning and then I put it there. So I should look back what I did. But in my head, I wanted to do this, find activities that they would bring back to go back to what was the objective.
Yeah, the other thing that you mentioned before and now again, and keep in mind that sometimes one learning activity, so it's not even that each learning objective has one learning activity.
Yeah.
No, so it could be that one contains more because it's more complex. So do not torture yourself, let's say, just finding one learning objective and one learning activity. If it helps you and you have the time when designing, okay, it's fine. Again, like when we start designing, we all find our ways, right? Then we know some tricks. Oh, yes, I know that this we can do more in this way. I know this type of activities work best for this type of learning objective. But when you are starting with it, yes, if you feel if that gives you like more, not only confidence, but it makes you feel like you covered it all, it's fine to do. Probably you went into many, many details, as you said, like I'm explaining everything now. So I'm really covering, but it doesn't mean that if you compile and combine things in one activity that is a bit more complex, that you are not covering them, or because I'm covering two, it's incorrect.
No, of course.
Which is in a way what I was asking you about the assessment. So what am I asking? What are you asking me to do, right? So for example, if I give you a course like, I don't know, think of a course. I know, like port cities, for example. So for port cities, the whole course is about looking at a port city and trying to figure out a particular method in order to combine heritage and the future. right? In connection with water, it's a bit complex. But anyway, so if I tell you that, for instance, in this particular module, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, or we're going to help you identify the challenges or the conflicts that could arise in a port city, right? So immediately I say to you, or I'm going to think, so I know that the assessment, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to identify this particular conflict in your port city, right? So if I say, so I'll help you identify the project, and the do is actually, okay, so this is a conflict so I'm from Vigo in Spain. So in my case, there's a particular conflict between the fishermen that go with mussels and the train that goes to the port because they can do things at the same time, right? So I'm looking at that from my own city. But if I know what it is that I'm going to be doing, which is identify or think about a conflict, what it is that I need to know, you still need to teach me about, for example, so who are the different actors that are in my port city, right? And so that's a way of designing backwards. So if I'm going to be able to do this, I need to know about X, Y, Z, and not start at the beginning and say, so this is what you're going to do. This is what I'm telling you to do. X, Y, Z comes back. See what I mean? So that's the difficult thing to do.
Yes, and let's say long term saves you time to design like backward design, because now you probably design a lot of things that when you read again your experience, or even when you test with someone, not at the end, no? Let's say you test your module or you validate your module with someone, and then you find out that maybe most of the things were not completely needed, or they go into much detail, which is your suspicion at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's like riding a bicycle. The more you do it, the better.
No, I can. I mean, in my experience, I did it, but in a classroom with students, and it was very different. And I knew exactly who they were and what they knew.
I get that. But yes, I always think of my teaching years, like also in person, and that's true.
It's very difficult if it's different.
Yeah, and you know that what they lack of, or like from where they come, and it's like, well, I know this group, they need more this, they need the other, and you try to personalize or adapt, let's say, according to the audience. The other thing is, like, you design, again, also your personas, they are different. They have something in common. They must have. So that's why, like, with coursing, what we get. So at least, of course, they have an interest in the topic. But if your target audience is professionals, they are teachers, or they are designers, so they have some things in common. And then you try to cover the basics of what they have in a basic course, right? That they need to learn. But of course, then a module that will come later is about moderation and communication. And if your learners, for example, in your case, you could ask us back, hey, because you put this resource, but I feel like I'm missing a part, or there is something I don't understand. And then, of course, an instructor has to jump in and say, yes, because for this, you can have this extra reading, or you just explain the concept. It happens many times in our courses, in my case, particularly the basic ones, they don't take into account the vocabulary. So sometimes it's quite specific. And in the first run, we encounter many questions about terms. And then what they do for the second run, they build a glossary. So it's not that they explain every time, because if not, they are going to have to like reference every time. Yes, well, with this, we mean this, with women. So they just build a glossary, and that solves the situation.
So you need some iteration anyway. To get it right. Maybe, I don't know, more an expert you are, less you need probably, but
well, at the same time, think of your course always as a dialogue with your learners. So it is true that you don't see them, they're not there the same, you don't have that eye-to-eye contact with them, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. So it's just kind of trying to find out as much from them as you can, in a way.
Even if they don't interact in the discussion, you could, after the run, of course, then let's say you just have your product, so it's running, after the run or during the run, then you can find out also with the statistics that the learning management system provides, like to see how they interact with your activities. So if you see that they fail a lot, then there is something that is going wrong from the design point of view.
Yeah.
Particularly, it's noticeable when the focus is in certain modules or certain activities. Sometimes it's the complexity, sometimes there are missing parts in the puzzles. So you're really asking them to jump, to do a big jump, cognitive jump or skill jump, but they cannot really fulfill well, and they don't have to actually. So there is a mistake, let's say, in the design. Can also be the instructions. So that happens more frequently than what you think. So we insist a lot on the instructions because we find that, it's easy to write like what to do, but you have to write it for your learner. So go again to your persona and say like, okay, is this something well explained for a person, like step by step how they have to do? So if you read our instructions, so we work on them like a lot to make them clear, specifically in these modules that the activities are a bit more complex because they can lead you to fail, right? No? And then the frustration comes from your side, even though it's maybe on our side that, oh yes, we didn't explain it that well, or it was so complex that people couldn't really achieve not even like a part of what we asked them to do. And then, instructions can be another thing. So there are many, you'll start finding them like in this module and next module, so you'll find them on your way.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, the last but not least, so in the discussion, we have flexibility and sustainability this week. So let's see. I think Erika already posted something.
I didn't in the discussion yet, but
okay, that's fine.
Sorry, we'll do it.
It's like really like we are really slow. It feels like
and in a way, because this time we are quite a small group, right? So there's a bit more, maybe it's a bit more pressure on you guys to post, but it's fine. That's it.
No, take your time, but take also the time to reflect on those.
The ideas that you think of, things, exactly. So
how flexible you want to be, sustainability, like for the future, you want to run it. It's not recommended that only once, or it's also to run several times per year, to run every year, right?
All the time.
All the time with cohort.
All the time we go.
No, I mean, if you do a completely online, I mean, with no, you could also try to design a course in which that's just their online course with.
I think, unfortunately, we're going towards, we haven't gone into, because it's not part of the course, maybe we should actually put it in at some extent. Anyway, we haven't gone into looking at the different types of online courses, the different types of MOOCs, the golden age of MOOC design, when actually people could choose what it is that they wanted to do. And there's actually very good examples of the learners themselves creating a bank of assessments and then proposing those assessments for different people to do what it is that they wanted to do. So it's a pity that we go little by little. We cannot get more limited into using this particular platform, what the platform can do, rather than just go open.
Okay, I'm trying.
I leave open for next week, because that's next module. In terms of saying, just choose your. So it's more about. I wonder at some stage that this is me philosophizing, so we should stop, because otherwise this is for a coffee or a beer again. It's like it's more. Is it really about learning, or is it just about I just want to get the certificate? So how much limited are we? So could we just not? Create a course. So, yes, I've got the instructions, this is what you're going to do, but let's be open in terms of using open software tools, do whatever you like, come back, share, as in the olden days kind of situation. Anyway, for another way.
When open comes in.
When open comes, we can talk about open. Yeah. Okay. Questions. If there's no question, we shall
stop the recording.
Love you and leave you.
Okay, I'm going to stop. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There.